I'm going to do a pitch deck review and provide some feedback. As you may or may not know, I look at pitch decks all day, helping founders as part of advisor here at startups.com. And this founder has been very gracious to say, hey, please go ahead and use this as an example for video review. So I appreciate the founder. Appreciations to you, you know who you are. I've taken out anything that indicates this startup or individuals associated with this startup. And let me just start by saying that the purpose of this deck is a screener deck. So a screener deck is the deck that you send as part of your outreach. There are multiple versions of decks. This is the appetizer, or at least the taste test of the appetizer. You go through many different iterations of decks and stages. This is the screener deck where you send out an email and then you say, please, if you want, take a look at my deck. Here it is attached, or here's the link to it. Usually the email is what gets the first interest. They're not going to open. I never open a pitch deck, just sight unseen. If someone sent me an email saying, here's a pitch deck, I wouldn't open it. So you want to send an email stating, all right, this is who we are, problem, solution, in single sentences, maybe an indication of where you got your introduction from. We have these email outreach templates available for you, but I'm going to take a look at this from a screener deck perspective. Quite often founders have master pitch decks where they've got all the information and they kind of pull the screener from there. Depends. I like to build my screener decks from scratch and start with the basics, the first foundation, and build up from there. So here is the cover page, pretty straightforward as far as cover page and logo. Now I'm going to show you the first slide we go into is the description and introduction. So this company provides a whole body care and wellness program based on advanced testing and proven science. This slide is unnecessary. You only have minutes to ensure that the investor or whoever the person is that's scouting or the gatekeeper looks through your deck. So brevity is important. My screener decks are a maximum 15 slides. If I can, I get it down to 11 slides. I've been pretty good about that, but 15 slides max and scannable in literally 2 to 3 minutes, 5 minutes tops if it's dense. Remember, all you want is you want the investor to say, this fits our investment thesis or criteria. I'm ready to take another meeting. And you want to get them to that point as fast as possible. If they have to do too much work, then you're going to lose them. It's not that they don't want to do the work. You have to give them a reason to do the work. So in this case, what I would do is I would take this whole thing, this whole description right here, and I would move it into the title page. So let's go back. So we say provides a whole body care and wellness program based on advanced testing and proven science. So then I would have logo, whole body, proven, whole body care based on, proven testing and advanced science as part of the bottom. So your title page basically states exactly what industry, exactly what the company is doing. So title, so-and-so X company, providing whole body care and wellness program based on advanced testing and proven science. Right underneath there, like right here. Okay. In fact, this is the contact information. I get rid of the contact information and just make it super clear, super legible, and go from there. Now, let me just point out that this founder takes direction extremely well, and I'm really appreciative they sent me a screener deck without all the images and graphics. And that's how I like to build decks and give feedback, is just do it with the outline, the sentences. Because if I can't understand what's going on just in sentences, then again, investors going to have to do too much work. Sometimes people get really tricky with pictures. Sometimes the pictures don't land. I just want the text. With that being said, all this stuff is unnecessary. You can kind of put it up, tiny right here, but all this is not necessary as part of the outline and really ultimately the screener deck. So we've indicated so far to eliminate this slide, combine it with the cover. Now let's get into the problem. Once again, you don't have to do this. So preventive care often fails because of inadequate discovery, testing, analysis. Okay, so I happen to know this founder's problem solution, what they're doing is pretty cool. Okay, I'm just going to establish. I've already had a conversation. That's the reason I'm critiquing this deck this way. And what's common is the actual reality, internal reality and external perception, there's a gap. And founders, and I get it, I have problems with this as well. Founders have a problem identifying the narrative that clearly communicates what they're doing, and investors want to see you be able to do that as founders. Why? Because first, investors need to get it, but second, they want you to know, or they want to know that you can communicate it, because you're going to have to do this often with other investors as well as users, team, etc. So if you don't even know how to describe your business, the chances of you describing it for other people and them to jump on board in an efficient manner is going to be significantly diminished, because this angel investor, if you're looking at a pre-seed, this angel investor is much more forgiving than the investors are going to be in your seed and your A round. So here's what we've got. So let me take a look at the problem and the solution together. So problem, once again, preventative care often fails because of inadequate discovery, testing, and analysis. We've created a comprehensive health analysis and action program that leads to optimal wellness outcomes. Here's the issue. Take any company logo, X, Y, Z Corp, ABC Inc., and put it at the top of this, and they will all be able to say the same thing. You're not saying anything different whatsoever. This actually just sounds like marketing. Again, let me just be super clear. I know this founder solution is much cooler and different than what we're getting right here. Let's go back then. How do we fix this? Preventative care often fails because of inadequate discovery, testing, analysis. In the problem slide, I want to know the size of the problem, how painful the problem, who this problem is affecting. And let's just jump in a bit, because I know this founder has a solution for this problem that starts with the solution is a very in-depth test that gives the patient, me, control of my testing and my discovery. So now we're getting compelling. So preventive care often fails. Well, how often does it fail? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Preventative care, et cetera. I'd rather see us go straight into, diagnosing, let's say 100 million, and I'm just making this up because I haven't done the research. I don't know the industry, and so I don't even want to try. But, let's say 100 million people die, because of, something like bad testing or something along the lines of testing that didn't cover all the details, et cetera, bad testing that leads to, analysis, something like that. So you see how I'm wordsmithing. I want to see, 100 million people per year, something along those lines, or X amount of dollars is wasted because of this and that, or these number of people don't go to get tested because of this problem that's happening, and therefore they die. And maybe I'm being hyperbolic here. Maybe this doesn't lead to death, but I want to know how bad the problem is. If we look, this is just a very generic statement. Okay, preventive care often fails. How often? Because of inadequate discovery. What does inadequate mean? What does discovery, testing, and analysis mean? And then we go to the solution. We create a comprehensive health analysis and action program that leads to optimal wellness outcomes. I'm going to say this once again. The internal reality of this startup is much cooler than what's coming across here. So you want to be as detailed as possible. Detailed. And where do you start? The one thing. And founders, and I have this conversation daily, say, but Ed, our startup does so much more. We can make so much more money, et cetera. I go, I get it. I understand that your startup does more, but the investor doesn't, and you don't want to lose the investor trying to explain everything. So you want to say, we've created, this test, this company's test, our test measures, et cetera. And I know, measures, this number, X number of factors or something like that. And it says giving control back to the patient for better preventative care, something like that. And maybe it's not the patient, or back to, the customer or the clinic, et cetera, that leads to optimal wellness income that reduces the cost, at 50% of the cost. Is there a reduction in cost? Now, here's the thing that we're looking for. We are looking for a 10x idea. When investors look at the deck, they're looking for, is this going to absolutely change the world? That's startup land. A 10% idea does not move the needle. So if you're saying our test is better than what's out there by 10%, and I know you're not going to go out and say ours is better than 10%, but that's how it comes across. You've just improved what's already out there. We need a 10x idea that this is an order of magnitude better than what's out there, and will change user behavior, disrupt industries, put incumbents out of business. That's what this idea has to do. It has to come across that way, right? So it needs to also significantly be relevant, absolutely relevant in a significant way to the problem. So we've established, let's say in this case, that, faulty testing or this and that without control of the patient and analysis, et cetera, leads to all these people dying and all these costs to the healthcare system. And we've solved that problem by creating a better test. And this is how much better it is. It is a 10x, one order of magnitude better at this, reduction of cost, et cetera, that people say you want to look at, a novel idea. So let me give you a little hint. I'm getting ahead of myself here because all these ideas are flowing, but are we showing a novel insight? Everybody else is doing this, but we do that. Everybody else is zigging, but really the secret is to zag, and they don't know what we know. And you have to explain a way where the investor, if you have a novel insight, goes, hey, wait a second, I never thought about that. That is actually a very clever solution. Makes a lot of sense. Well, why aren't incumbents doing that? Why isn't the rest of the industry doing that? Because of different factors. Maybe they're calcified. It's just institutionalized. Maybe the financial incentives aren't there, et cetera. You want to tickle the investor's imagination and say, here's a clear insight. So again, in this case, I'm talking to the founder, and he's explaining to me the way this test works. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea. I thought a standard blood test or this health test measures just this, like you're just going to go measure cholesterol and et cetera. And he was explaining to me, no, you can add all these hormones. Like you can actually test for these hormones and this and that, and show and predict this and predict that. And I'm like, why aren't people doing it? How much does it cost? And I think it was like $5,000 or something crazy like that. And I said, well, that's not cool. How much can you do for it? Well, $1,500, and we can bake it in a program and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, wow, that's totally cool. I got a whole new perception of preventative healthcare. You see how it's not coming across in this deck. And I think that's just a shame. It's a travesty. So let's move on. So now what you want to do is explain how it works. If you have something that warrants that. So again, discovery, testing, analysis, action means nothing. Simple 4-step process. What does that mean? Type thing. So I'd rather put simple 4-step process right here. And I'd rather have just a few lines under each one explaining back to the solution that this is the way that it works. It's simple. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. One call saves you 20% or more on your car insurance, etc. All you got to do is pick up the phone. Like Uber, you just, pull up. You don't have to pick up the phone and call. You just pick up the app, your location, say, I want to ride, and then it shows up, etc. If that's the way your solution, you're going to present it. So you want to actually show and clearly demonstrate. So again, this is just, it's marketing at best. It says nothing, and the investor is going to get frustrated. And you're losing the investor. So here's some better information that can go in there. And so combine how it works in unique features. But again, this is unique features, advanced lab testing. What does that mean? I don't understand. Evidence-based, patentable. Okay, maybe we're getting a little closer right there. Highly personalized interaction. Same thing. Like, this is all generic information. Okay, clear information tracking through patient navigator. Okay, like, what? I don't understand. And I'm just being a little facetious here because I just keep thinking back this founder story, and their startup is just way cooler than it's coming across. So let's look at the market opportunity. This US healthcare system is in need of fundamental change. That's not a market opportunity. That's describing a situation. And also what happens is, it's hyperbolic. And I've had these conversations with founders where they come out with these big statements like, humanity is destroying society, one environmental crisis at a time, etc. I understand that people get passionate about it, but it's just verging on hyperbolic, and you're not focused on a problem, right? So you want to get very concise, and you want to avoid going, you want to whip up excitement, but not from a, everything's broken and everybody sucks and etc. And for me, now, maybe this is just personal, but unless you're actually talking to an activist investor or something along those lines, they've heard it all. We don't need to go there, right? So then let's talk. Our identified market is actively seeking, but how big is that market? Like, what is the market opportunity? Like, is there a major trend that's going? People are moving more to private clinics, etc., or getting away, or they're rejecting the traditional system. Preventative care, maybe they're saying that preventive care needs to be the solution or something like that. We have the team, the intellectual property, the experience required to make this a reality. That's not a market opportunity. These are just describing, again, just sort of fluff in terms of explaining the company. So I personally take this slide completely out and combine it here. So let's look at this. Okay, so here's a bottom-up approach. Now, if you're going to use this technique, TAM, SAM, SOM, you better show your math. Primary care. Okay, so this is a good start, primary care. But so TAM, SAM, SOM. So TAM is if everybody who potentially could use this times your cost or your pricing equals, that's your TAM. If everybody, then service available market. And there's lots of stuff on the internet, but that can describe this to you, but I'm going to explain it here very briefly. Service is going to be, okay, this is who we're going to focus on because our business model, and we want to focus on the niche, etc. This is optimal for our business model. And this is realistic based on, different factors, how much. So this is kind of like your basic TAM, SAM, SOM, right? And so right here, total available market of primary care, all markets, all markets, 252 billion. But is that all markets? Does that mean people who are using your solution? This is not a bottom up. This is actually top down, right? If you're going to do top down, you got some really cool numbers. Show it in, in terms of the market opportunity, like put it up here, just say, personalized testing is predicted to be a whatever $1 billion market. And then if we say, okay, like I like the fact that we're in billions, so, and then service attainable market, what this company is saying, and investors are going to smell this a mile away, is you're saying you can do $1 billion in business a year. 1 billion, that's going to be your revenue. And that seems pretty ridiculous because like I've got nothing else to show me that you can actually do $1 billion in business. Like you better be doing, $200 million in business right now for you to get to $1 billion with my investment. So immediately investors can smell this, smell what's off a mile away. And this is what I tell, and this is the common thing, is investors, a lot of investors won't understand your market, but they'll know when your math is a little janky and you're just trying to inflate things and you haven't really thought through what your company can possibly do. So if you have proper math and just say, okay, you have to tell the story. If all the users who could do this, if every test and analysis and every around the world used our stuff, we'd be $252 billion. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on private clinics because we think we can get there faster, and private clinics because people are going to pay for this. And if all those users did that, well, then we would be making the serviceable available market, right? And so service attainable market, SAM. So I'm getting my acronyms mixed up here. So then you can go to SOM and say, okay, so based on that and the people that we can reach and the things that we're doing, we realistically believe we can do $200 million a year in business. That's a solid business. You do over $100 million a year, you are looking at a unicorn. So learn how to do your TAM, SAM, SOM properly if you're going to use this as a way to, show how big this opportunity is. Market analysis, demographics, psychographics, I don't care. We're not at the point where I don't care. What I do care about, if you're going to do a market analysis, I care about your go-to. So if you're going to use this in your go-to market strategy and say, okay, we're going to target, people 35, 65 years old, and we know that they hang out on Facebook, et cetera. And here's the reason we're going to do ads and our ads are going to focus on the worried well. Well, now you've got a compelling story. But again, you want to provide a novel insight, something different. If you just say, we're going to do Facebook ads, okay, everybody does Facebook ads. How are you going to do Facebook ads? What is the difference between, what is the actual process of going to the market? Like, are you going to create community first? You can do ads and then they're going to funnel into a free something, figure that out. Are you going to do public education? Are you going to do webinars, etc.? I had a founder tell me the other day, said, we're actually going to do educational media and we're going to treat ourselves like a media first company that leads to our services. And I thought, that's really interesting. That's a good way, of doing it. It's different because that was very differentiated from what the competitors do in that particular industry. So now let's go to business model, $350 one-time fee, program fee, monthly program fee does not include specialized testing, analysis, or care, etc. Now, so this is, I'd like to optimize. So you don't even have to go into that much detail, like, signups and testing, signups, sorry. And then monthly, and then you say, plus services, upsell services. Okay. So all I want to do is know, how are you going to make money with this? Right. So you can even just say sign up, subscription, and then add-ons, etc. All right. So if you want to get detailed, you can go if it's relevant, but right now it's not relevant because I don't know exactly what everything entails. I just want to know you're solving the problem in this case. And then the competition, traditional healthcare, concierge service, single condition treatments. This is where you've got a choice. You can either do the magic quadrant, as they say, and then show you are there. Now, again, let me talk about this for a moment. This is like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, I find. But you want to really think through and show that you understand the competition. Smart investors will grill your competition. If they're interested, they will actually go out and Google your competition. So if you do this quadrant, what people say is, well, that's not very smart because you're saying you're differentiated only on 2 dimensions. You can obviously, that it's too simple of a differentiator, etc. But if your quadrants are really good and it makes sense, it moves the needle for investors because it makes a lot of sense. It's a way to clearly and easily define how you're different. Then there's the other way is the features matrix, which actually is you want to, take the benefits up top and then start with the number one benefit and then go down. And then you want to have, competitor X, Y, Z, U. Sorry, I said it the Canadian way. Z is the American way. U, and then have this kind of, thing going on where you go X, 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 check X, check X, and then you're check, 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 which is great because you've thought through all these different benefits. But at the same time, guess what? People go, oh, you just put up the benefits there that show that you are completely different. Yeah, I get it. People say that as well, but you know what? At least you've thought it through. So figure out which one is going to show that you really are different from the competition. Okay. So use, pick your poison, if you will. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But great part is if you do it right, you can actually have a conversation with them. Right now, the real smart founder will actually show that there's a competitor that does almost everything, but is missing that one key insight, right? And I don't know if that exists if you're doing it, but you want to look at it from that way. And then key differentiators, this should have gone right in the beginning. Key differentiators in the process, et cetera. And again, all this is very generic. And then core team. So here's what's dangerous. All right. So first, core team, I don't know if who's full-time and who's part-time. Okay. I don't know if everybody's on payroll. On top of which, I don't know if these individuals have got clear startup experience or domain expertise. I want to see that this team can actually pull this off. So the fact that you've compiled a big team means absolutely nothing to me. This to be determined, this is not a good signal whatsoever, because it shows that you are you can't build, it might send a signal you can't build a team. Let's not get into what you need yet. All right. Let's get into the fact that how amazing is this team to go attract the people that you need. And so you want key highlights like how many years experience do you have, accolades, are you published, have you had an exit, have you raised before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And having so much team there, full-time, part-time, we don't know. Or did you just put these people on here to make your thing look good? Are they actively participating? Are they going to quit their full-time jobs when you come on? Like, what is going on there? And that's going to be a key thing. And so what this looks like is kind of doing sleight of hand. You're distracting from the fact that your team is really weak by putting all these people on there. I don't know what's going through the head of the investor, but this doesn't lead to a lot of confidence. And then you talk about the advisory board. And again, the advisory board, you better have to put on there someone like really amazing. Like we're working with one founder and on their advisory, it was Deepak Chopra, like as big of a name as you're going to get in that space. And in certain instances, I'm saying lead with your team, lead with Deepak Chopra, right? So if you got a major celebrity on there, lead with that type thing. And it's like, wow, this founder has brought this celebrity on, but they have a clear role. Don't just drop a celebrity's name. That's one of the big red flags. If I see a lot of name dropping, we can reach this celebrity and that celebrity and this celebrity, I start to wonder, can you actually pull this off? So that's what I'm looking at right there. Now, go-to-market strategy, that should have been earlier in this. And we talk, early adopter program, direct to consumer enterprise, again, very generic. We don't know. So you want to be exact. And so combine your insights they have as far as the demographics, and then combine with the go-to-market strategy and then funding target. All right, let's talk about this. So I like the fact that, this is pre-seed round, right? So you really kind of want to identify that pre-seed. And the reason is, if you're saying I want a seed, you're indicating that you have pre-seed. And now investors, remember, they want to know that you're de-risked by having previous rounds, depending on the round that you ask for. If you get a pre-seed round, seed rounds are a lot easier to get. And so indicate pre-seed round. This is 250K. All right. So that makes sense. Typical pre-seed rounds, they average around 500K, just so that you understand, what's going on. So saying we want a 2 million pre-seed round, well, that's not going to work there. Just go listen and talk to the investors. Investors will tell you, and that published material. I had someone who works for a fund tell me, Ed, we write checks for $250K to $1.5 million for pre-seed, seed, and A. I said, all right. So that means in pre-seed is 250K. That's the bottom. And then if you get past 500K, maybe to $1 million, that's considered seed and above, right? So now the next thing is raising, 250K to reach 1 million annual revenue. Now, this is a big question mark for me. I don't know. Like, where did you get this number? Like, how does it actually work? Do you have a clear financial snapshot on how you're going to do that? Do you have traction already that's going to lead you there? And so, 1 million annual recurring revenue, and then complete early adopter program, product development, marketing, and sales. Well, guess what? These are telling me that you don't even have your program's ready. Your product is not ready. So I'd rather see you say pre-seed to get us to a launch with X amount of users, etc. And that's a pre-seed round, because pre-seed is we haven't launched anything yet. We have maybe a working prototype. We haven't launched anything yet. So that's a more feasible, palatable, believable milestone. Now, kudos for putting the milestone in here. A lot of founders don't do that, but you want to say we're launching, and, just be straightforward. We're going to launch and we're going to reach X amount of users for 250K, which means we validated, and then just going to assume that for hyper growth, we're going to raise a lot more. I'd rather see you raise 500K and kind of go for that, middle round, and then not have to raise again and say at 250K, let's say 250K launches the product, another 250K does marketing, then you're making money, and say you can't get another round for a while, you got runway and you can live off your revenues, you get there. So to me, you want to be very careful what you're raising, because investors are wise to this. They're like, you haven't really launched all this stuff yet. You got all these people. Are they like independently wealthy? Have you all personally put in $1 million? Are you funded? Like, this is information that investors are going to wonder, and they're going to sniff out whether you haven't really thought through what you're going to do with your money. I've had angel investors, all investors go and rip apart this one slide and say, okay, let's go. Engineers cost this, and then marketing costs that, et cetera. You don't need 250K. You need $1.5 million based on what you're presenting. Or you're going to say, that's not worth 250K. That's, or that's not worth $2 million that you're asking for. You can pull this off for $1 million, type thing. So you got to understand what's going through the investor's mind and work through all the details. So that's my final point. When you're building this, think about the investor. Take their point of view, use your empathy, put yourself in their shoes. And if you need to, talk to investors on what they look for. And I'm hoping that content like this is going to give you an idea of what goes through the investor's mind as well. And the more you get exposed to this, the better you're going to be at your pitch decks. And I understand it's very difficult to do for your own. That's the reason we're here to help. And us advisors will give you feedback on your deck. We'll also, we have a service where we can just assign someone to pull out your narrative for you and basically build your deck for you, if that's what you're looking for. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. Other than that, again, my big appreciation for this founder coming in and, having the grit to say, I'm willing to have my pitch deck critiqued in this way. As I said, the startup is way cooler than how this pitch deck is coming across. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next version.